conversation, but I'm really afraid our speaker today is going to drop the gloves and take me out.
Yeah.
Whoa.
None of us wants that.
No gloves on.
I'm really afraid Dick is going to start telling his stories about the school teachers.
We'll have Dick do the whole presentation sometime.
Yeah, program. Program.
All right. So let me go ahead and ring the bell here. Bing. So good afternoon and welcome to this August 7th meeting of the Rotary Club of Brentwood. I'm Keeley Hall and have the privilege of serving as the president of this fine club. Michael Heineman has our invocation this morning, followed by Sana Robinson. Michael, take it away.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Please bow with me. Lord, we Rotarians are a diverse people. Globally, we represent different nations, different ethnicities, different creeds, different races, and by definition, multiple different businesses. We, despite our differences, and let's consider our differences as our great strength. Let's never let our differences become a weakness. But despite our differences, we Rotarians are united in many ways. And above all, we're united in our service to our community, to our nation, and to our world. Lord, bring these Rotarians together today that we may continue our service, that we may continue our gathering and to see bright and smiling faces, and that we may enjoy our time together. In thy name we pray, amen.
Sana?
Will everybody please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the four-way test of the things that we think, say, and do. First,
Is it the truth?
The truth.
is it second?
Is it
Fair
fair
to all
to all concerned?
Is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendship? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? We certainly hope so. Thank you.
Good job.
All right. And let's see. Jane Covington, I'm not sure if Jane's on actually, but I'm going to survey the crowd and see if we have any.
Here, Keeley, I'm on.
Hey, there she is. She's got her hat.
And
Jane.
I have surveyed the crowd and have not seen any guests or visiting Rotarians. So I'm going to have to, again, ask if you do have a guest to, or you are a guest to speak up. Didn't see anybody.
All right. We have someone named fellow Rotarian, so that could be a visiting Rotarian, or it just could be anybody in our club. All right. Let's see. How about some happy bucks? Who is happy today and would like to share with the club? Okay. Super happy crowd, I see. Awesome.
Kip's trying to jump in. He just
Oh.
needs to unmute himself.
Somehow I muted myself. I would just like to say I'm happy that we're trying to go to school. Like they're my son's in front of teachers in some way, shape, or form. And he's not in front of his video game. So I'm pretty happy about that. I think that's great.
I would, yeah. I am also happy about that. It's so obvious the teachers are doing their very best. And as I said, it started off rocky, and as the day goes on, it's getting better and better. And I presume as the days go on, it'll get better still. But the amount of effort, the amount of sincere effort to make this work that our educators are doing, I think is awesome. And if we can just have the parents.
I'd like to add that we should give a shout out to anybody who's an educator, because right now they need some positive reinforcement. They're about hearing all the negative, but we absolutely, anybody you're talking to, or I mean, I'm sending some direct lines of communication, just like, hey, I know you're getting a lot, but we're here for you, and how can we help? So
Absolutely. Second, all of that. Anybody else happy today? All right. I'm going to move on, but if you are happy and you would like to let everybody know and you're having technical difficulties or whatever it may be, feel free to send an email out or send one just to me and I'll forward it out. We got to be creative with how we share. All right. I do have a few announcements. First of all, thank you, Sarah, for presiding over the meeting last week. That was very helpful. My family and I were taking a little vacation, little socially distant lake trip. So that was good. Thank you to Sarah, and thank you for Brian and Chief Hughes with that great introduction, and all the folks that helped pull the meeting off last week. Another thing to just a housekeeping measure. For those of you who are not aware, I actually switched jobs this week. And so I have had a little bit of issue switching everything over to my new email and contact information. If you have tried to get a hold of me, have not been able to, I am so sorry. I'm in the
update Club Runner.
What's that?
Did you update Club Runner?
I did. I just started my job on Wednesday, a new job on Wednesday, but I updated Club Runner yesterday. So it took me 24 hours, but I got to it. So it should all be correct now. But if you happen to have my email address saved in your Outlook or whatever, don't use that one. Replace it with the new one.
Hey, Keely,
or use Club Runner Mobile.
I didn't hear either one of y'all.
Or use Club Runner Mobile and it'll be up to date.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, Larry.
Keely, I was just going to tell you that the email I sent you that you received, I sent to your old email address, and Tim was nice enough to respond back to me and tell me that you weren't there anymore. So they're taking care of you.
I appreciate you. I think somebody else emailed him yesterday and responded back. This was meant for me, but he didn't realize.
Keely, who did you go to work with?
Yeah. What's that?
Who did you go to work with?
Oh, yeah, I should probably say that. I am running the Williamson County market now for Wilson Bank and Trust.
Good.
So be looking for new branches and kind of spreading the love throughout the county for Wilson Bank and Trust. All right. Another announcement. Leadership Brentwood sent out an email yesterday, I think it was, and this is an organization that we help a lot as well, but the Tennessee Baptist Children's Home is experiencing a scarcity of supplies for their commissary. So we may gather a group of Rotarians. We may do this just individually, but we may even organize a group to do this. If you're interested in doing this, let me know. Send me an email at khall@wilsonbank.com. Send me an email if you would like to participate in this, but they're needing some folks to donate some items. They've got a list of things that they need: cereal, green beans, corn, rice, potatoes, peanut butter, those sorts of things. If you'd like to help with that, send me an email and we'll get a group together to put something together for that. We may even do something, a donation from the club or from the foundation as well. We'll look into all of that. So if you want to help, let me know. Larry Kane also has an announcement on the golf tournament. Larry?
Thank you, Keely. Just real quick, we're in good shape. We're 45 days away from our golf tournament. We're in good shape from the standpoint that we have a full field of players, which we've had, thankfully, since back in February. But we're terribly, terribly short on our hole sponsors that we sold last year. We had 166 hole sponsors that our group sold last year, and this year to date, we have sold 59. So we're still over 100 holes short of what we did last. These are the companies you sold last year. I'm not asking for new ones. We actually have 10 new hole sponsors this year, which is fabulous, included in that 59. So I'm asking everyone, I've sent emails to your team captains, and hopefully they've gotten a hold of you, but I'm asking everyone who had a hole sponsor last year, please contact them. And I realize some of them are not going to be able to do it. The economy, et cetera, is going to affect their ability to support us. But I can't believe 100 plus sponsors are not out there for us to get, and we need that money. Right now, if we had the tournament today, we'd be about 24, let's just say $25,000 short of what we did last year. So those whole sponsors are key to making up that shortage or some portion of that. So my message is everything's good. We're going to have a nice tournament, but please get out and recover those whole sponsors that you had last year if you have not already done so. Thank you.
Larry?
Yes.
Ask you a question.
Sure.
So, is there a way to send out the list of the whole sponsors and who got them last year, the ones we're missing that we didn't? Because there may be people that aren't on Zoom that may not, they may have just slipped their mind because of Corona or whatever, or it could be that I know somebody Kip knows and Kip hadn't had time to get to it, and I can call Kip and say, would you like for me to call this person? Just kind of a tag team kind of thing to try to get some sponsors.
If you will contact your team captain, he or she has all that information. I have sent that out to them to share with you. They have everybody's name and the holes they sold last year, including the ones that have been recovered this year already. So that information has been out there for some time, and you can just contact whoever your team captain is, and they can get that to you, and that should work.
We'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question.
All right. And as long as we don't have any other announcements, our speaker is skating hard for me right now, so I want to get to him before I regret it very seriously. So, Ray Little, do you have your sound working? Ray, are you there?
Everything's good. Y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Stu Grimson is one of the top 10 NHL enforcers of all time. He played in the NHL for 13 years for the Flames, the Blackhawks, the Ducks, the Red Wings, the Whalers, and that was when Bob Marley wasn't with them, the Hurricanes, the Kings, and our Nashville Predators. Since his playing days, Stu has obtained a law degree and practices law. He has served as an announcer for the Nashville Predators and now works with the NHL Network as an analyst. He has also added author to his resume with the release of his new book, The Grim Reaper, The Life and Career of a Reluctant Warrior. These books, signed copies, will be available through the club for purchase. And Susie Lindsay has already sent out a link for you, but if you have any questions, I'm sure you can contact Susie or Keeley, and they'll be available till 5 p.m. on Monday. Stu has 4 children, Aaron, Hannah, Christian, and Jane, and is married to Jennifer. On a personal note, Stu has been a friend for a number of years, and we were blessed to help organize and work with Hockey Ministry International's All-Star Prayer Breakfast here in Nashville in 2016, a very moving and successful event. A shout out to Susie Lindsay and Devin McClendon and several other club members for being instrumental in their service to this event. Stu and I are both Belmont graduates, but my fighting skills were not as good, as I always lead with my nose. Very thankful to have Stu as a friend, but much more excited that he is a brother in the Lord. Stu has been a great encourager to me and has been a shoulder to lean on as I've gone through some deep waters and have had lots of responsibilities at the same time, especially the last 2 years. Proverbs 18:24 says, there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. I will forever be indebted and grateful to Stu for his help. Our own Linus Sujas has prepped a little video to Zamboni the ice before Stu speaks. Remember to buy the book. And also, as we watch this quick video, notice that Michael Jordan wore Stu's number when they were both in Chicago and played in the old Chicago Stadium. Thank you, Stu, for taking time to speak with us today. But first, take it away, Linus.
More. That's all he's got? Come on, Stu.
That's it. Apparently that's all there is. That's all there is. Nobody's got the appetite for a second viewing of that, I'm sure. Can I just say the further I get from what I used to do for a living, the stranger what I used to do for a living seems. That is, it's a strange period of time for our sport back then when, and I liken it to a moment when dinosaurs roamed the earth. The game doesn't look like that much anymore. But let me say, I am thrilled to be a part of the group today. Thank you, Rotarians, for inviting me into your meeting this week. Ray, especially thank you for the gracious invite, the more than gracious introduction. Just make the ask, Ray. I'm happy to go where I need to do what I need to support you, my good friend. You've been a real comfort to me in all the days that we've known one another. And Ray has asked that I kind of share with the group on probably my least favorite subject, but the only one I'm an expert on, and that's me. So maybe just for the next 10 or 15 minutes, what I'd really like to do is maybe just give you a sense of my background. I am by no means a Tennessee native. I come here to Tennessee and have been a Tennessee resident going all the way back to 2001 when I signed with the Predators. But I got here by a very circuitous route, to be sure. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about that. That might take 10 or so minutes. I'd love to tell you about a couple of the maybe themes that resonate through the book, and they really are lessons that I have learned in the course of my career and lifetime. I'd love to share a little bit about that and maybe an anecdote or two about the book and kind of how it came to be. And then really, if it's okay with Ray and with Jennifer, perhaps somebody could monitor this, but the time that we have remaining, I'd love to entertain your questions and go in any direction you'd like to go. That is with one exception. Mark McFerrin can't open up his mic. Mark gets no opportunity for questions. I've known Mark about as long as I've known Ray Little, and I know Mark to be nothing but trouble. So born and raised in Western Canada, and like any young Canadian boy did back then, and really almost without exception, every young Canadian boy played hockey. As I graduated up through the minor hockey association, the local youth association, through every team or every town that my family and I lived, I began to realize I was bigger than my peers, and I seem to have some skill. I seem to have some aptitude for this sport called ice hockey. And it opened up a lot of doors and led me to a lot of different places. The short version of all that is played major junior hockey back in Western Canada in a little town called Regina, Saskatchewan for 3 years with the Regina Pats. And that ultimately was my opportunity to penetrate professional hockey. I was actually drafted twice, the second time by the Calgary Flames in 1985, turned pro with the Calgary Flames, and then went on to kind of forge an NHL career of some 14 years plus 3 years of minor league experience. So ultimately a 17-year professional hockey league career, and initially starting out with the Calgary Flames, specifically in their minor league, with their minor league affiliate in Salt Lake City, Utah. I took kind of an unconventional path, and this is kind of well documented in the book. Typically, back in this era, a young man, an athlete, went the major junior route, and then you ultimately went from there directly into the NHL. And major junior hockey, for those that don't understand, is a little bit like collegiate athletics in the US. except there's really no academic component. So it really is almost kind of a watered down version of my league. Young men who are ages 16 to 20 years of age. And this is a league that is really scouted most with great intensity by the NHL, by the professional franchises, because it's the closest simile to the pro schedule. Major junior hockey essentially plays a very pro-like schedule, albeit you're at 16 through 20 years of age. So all that to say, I got drafted out of major junior hockey, turned pro, but in doing that, I took kind of an odd stop. I was a guy, and you can tell by the little stretch of video I think Linus put together with some very impending organ tracks in there. Linus, thanks a lot for that. It almost sounded like you were playing live while we watched. But I took kind of a detour, I guess is the best way to describe it. I played a very physical role. And at an earlier stage in my life, you don't mind playing that physical role if you're playing a regular turn on the ice. But there were stretches of time during my amateur career, my major junior career, that I wasn't playing a lot. And I was still being asked to play that very physical role. And that's a hard thing for a young man emotionally and physically. And for that reason, when I was given the opportunity to turn pro, I actually ended up taking that in a very different direction. I just didn't see myself kind of climbing that ladder all over again, limited playing time, but still being asked to play that role. It's hard on you. And I decided it's not for me. I left my first ever pro training camp, went back to school, and got to start on my education. I played 2 years of college hockey kind of as a detour between my amateur career, my major junior career, and my professional career. And I played 2 years of college hockey for a little school called the University of Manitoba back in Winnipeg, back in Canada. Played 2 years there, and I think grew up a little in the process, became a better player, got a start on my education. And the Calgary Flames actually came forward after that second year and said, Stu, they still had my rights. Stu, we'd really like an opportunity to enter into a contract with you. Do you have interest in, would you like to consider turning pro? Fast track, short answer was, yeah, that made a lot of sense. I felt like I had really matured as a person. I had matured as a player. And at the end of the day, I mean, I know you hear a lot of people say, from the moment I can remember, from the earliest of my age, I knew that I wanted to be a professional hockey player. I've had that dream. That really wasn't me. I love the game. I love to play it. But for me, I almost feel like I backed into the opportunity. I wanted to satisfy my curiosity, I think is perhaps the best way to say it. So when the offer was made, and in the years leading up to the offer, I had a sneaking suspicion in the back of my mind, I really need to see how far I can press this. So ultimately, I mean, the story is rather straightforward from there. Spent a 17-year career in a lot of different places. And then ultimately ended up in Nashville Predator in 2001. I signed here, sustained a career-ending injury in my very first year, about midway through that year. But my family was at an age where, as I retired, as I wrapped up my professional hockey career, the kids were a little bit older. We had high school juniors, and it was time to kind of settle down and think about where it made the most sense to sink roots. And that really was right here in Nashville. Even today, and I'm sure I'm more affirmed in this than I ever have been, I don't know if there's a better place to raise a young family. The cost of living, the caliber of the people that I meet in just about a daily life, while a resident of Tennessee, I don't see myself being anywhere but. And I feel very fortunate to have landed here as part of, as a member of the last team that I played with, ultimately my retiring team, that of the Nashville Predators. Having said all that, I now needed to turn at the end of my athletic career, and I kind of pivoted, and I'm staring at the rest of my life like it's somewhat of a blank canvas. Now what? I had ambitions, I had aspirations. I obviously, by the earlier part of the story, I had not completed my undergraduate degree when I first turned pro. I had about a year left on my undergraduate degree as I wrapped up my playing career. I spent a full year at Belmont studying. I completed my economics major, and I kind of got the inspiration, perhaps leading up to that year back, finishing off my undergrad. But to be honest, I think probably even well before that, I wanted to do a graduate degree of some kind, and the law made the most sense. I had seen lots of former NHL players earn a degree in the law and then go on to work some really exciting jobs in our sport and in other places, like general managers of club, like sports agents. So the law made a lot of sense for me. And I think at the end of the day, I kind of came to this conclusion. Yes, it's a really significant investment of my time. No, at 37 years of age, I don't think I want to be showing up for class on a daily basis at the Memphis School of Law. Many, many mornings I put my feet on the floor wondering how in the world did I ever get here? But it made great sense. I wanted to provide myself and build the marketable skills into myself to allow myself a broad range of career choices once I had kind of earned a law degree. And that really has rung true over time. Since leaving the University of Memphis, where I earned my law degree, I've worked as labor counsel to the NHL Players Association. I litigated with a firm right here in Nashville. Many of you on this call may know K. Griffin Inkema. Now it's Colbert. Back then it was Brothers, I think. K. Griffin Inkema and Brothers. But I worked for Jim Kay's firm for several years and was a trial attorney after my position with labor counsel at the NHL Players Association. I backed into another opportunity. When I came back to Nashville, or when I started litigating here in Nashville, the Nashville Predators came forward and made me the following proposition. Stu, we don't have anybody working the color commentary spot, color commentary role on our radio. Would you consider doing that? You don't have to travel. We'll give you a few bucks every time you jump on the air, but you just work the home games. We're only in town, a couple of times a week, every other week. So it would be kind of a light commitment, but an opportunity just to kind of keep a toe in the game. I liked the way that sounded. I left probably under the impression that broadcasting was not for me. No way that I would. It just didn't seem to get my adrenaline flowing. I just didn't have much interest in it. But this opportunity from the Predators was kind of a low entry or a low bar to enter and give it a shot. And another detour, but the longer story made short, I did that for 2 years before the Predators actually offered me the TV law, at least temporarily. For a number of years, that actually kind of parlayed into my current position with the NHL Network, which is also somewhat of a part-time role. I am one of about 12 or 14 different analysts, ex-players like myself, and we essentially work on a rotation. We go up to Secaucus, New Jersey, where, for anyone that's seen it, NHL Network is, and I know Ray's got it on in his house, about 24/7, but we are 24/7 hockey coverage, and nobody in the US really does this. We do a pretty good job of really highlighting the game and one-stop shop to get everything that's going on in the sport. So I go up to Jersey when hockey is on, and every other week, and I knock out 3 or 4 dates at a time. In addition to my regular job, the thing that kind of keeps me centered and engaged today, which is I am in-house counsel for a local company. We're right here, in fact, not so much your backyard, perhaps your front yard. We're on Maryland Way in Brentwood. Third Home is a luxury private travel club. We do a variety of things at Third Home, but we're essentially a collection of folks who really love to travel. Some participate by way of exchanging availability in their vacation home. Others participate in a division we've got called Third Home Go, where you don't necessarily need a home to participate in some really cool travel opportunities. We have 11,000 properties across 95 different countries all over the world. And Third Home is a really unique concept for anybody that wanted to probe that a little deeper. I wear two hats there. When you have a head this size, you can wear a lot of hats. I am in-house counsel. I'm also the VP of Business Development. And I must say, my reasons for signing up with Third Home and becoming a shareholder is that Jen and I, my wife, really love to travel. And now perhaps my main position or my centering position, which is in-house counsel for Third Home, actually becomes an extension of the way Jen and I like to live. We love to travel, and that's what Third Home is all about. We sit squarely in the travel industry. Let me shift gears a little bit. Ray mentioned it, and I'd love to spend just a couple of minutes talking about my book. It came out in October. It'll be a year since The Grim Reaper, The Life and Career of a Reluctant Warrior, hit the bookshelves and just about anywhere else you can find books online, including Amazon. I think Jennifer will probably have an email for anybody, or be able to include anybody on an email and just kind of point you in whatever direction if you have an appetite to pick up the book. I had somebody in my ear for years and years before I ever wrote this book, trying to convince me that my story was worth telling. Never thought that was the case. When I married Jennifer, I think she was, and see the value, and I began to see, I think too, perhaps, I don't want to say therapy. I don't know that I was trying to overcome anything or that I was ailing from anything, but writing of the book was a very therapeutic exercise. For anybody that's read it or anybody that knows my story, I was adopted, and I knew that from a very, very early age. I was adopted as a young child, a young baby. But the interesting part about that is my birth father and I have uncanny similarities. For two people that didn't know one another, but really had nothing but a blood connection, it's surprising how similar our lives have been. And I really met and discovered my birth father at a much later stage in my life, and came to learn that he has been a professional athlete, played professional football, was a graduate of Notre Dame before he ultimately turned pro in the CFL, went on to become a professional wrestler after he retired from football. And while he was a professional wrestler, worked on his PhD in social psychology and ultimately turned that into a very thriving practice, counseling, consulting with, and advising law enforcement just in terms of how to manage crises and hostage situations. So it was very interesting at a later stage in my life to be able to reconnect with my birth father and to maybe gain a clearer understanding of, yes, it's both nature and nurture, but frightening to see how compelling the nature part of our development and ultimately our personality played in at least my case. So that's discussed a good bit in the book, but I did want to share with you, and I think this probably goes to the tipping point or the driving justification behind why I ultimately wrote the book. For me, I didn't want to tell a story that was just a hockey story, just a collection of hockey anecdotes, as amusing and as crazy as some of those anecdotes are. I wanted to be able to impart to people that picked up my book some of the things that I have read, both through hockey and outside of hockey. And I I think that's ultimately the reason I end up penning the Grim Reaper. And let me just, as I kind of wrap up, you know, this kind of part of our meeting, let me just share a couple of anecdotes about that. Two of the, I guess, central themes in the book. I mentioned an earlier point in my career when I was playing in the minor leagues with the Calgary Flames organization. I had an opportunity. I was called up in my second really meaningful NHL opportunity. I was called up by the major league team, Calgary, to play a home and home series, which is a 2-game set, one in their building, the second in our building, against our great nemesis, the Edmonton Oilers. There probably is no fiercer rivalry a couple hours down the freeway from one another, and they have literally been banging each other's brains out for years. So I played for the Calgary Flames, was called up by the Calgary Flames. We're playing a home and home set with the Oilers. I knew that if I was going to make it in the NHL, the path into the NHL led through my counterpart on the Edmonton Oilers, who was Dave Brown. Dave Brown at this moment in time, and we're going back to 1989 here, I believe. In 1980s, Dave Brown, they call him Dave Brown, Fists of Renown, was the meanest, baddest, toughest human being on skates, and that got very little argument. He had a left hand that hit like a thundercloud, and I knew that if I was going to make it in the NHL, I was going to have to fight Dave Brown. First game is on a Sunday, and I'm watching him during the 15-minute warm-up, and he is looping over to my side of the red line, and I am so nervous I can hardly muster the saliva to spit, knowing that I've got to lock horns with this man. So fast forward to the first period. We're out there about 2 or 3 minutes into the first period, face off and neutral ice. He and I are lined up. He's on my left shoulder at a face off, and the puck drops, and I elbowed him right in the chest to get his attention and to tell him it's time to get started. 3 left hands cut the air above my head, and that was noticed to me. I better get busy, and I better get busy quick. I grabbed with my left hand across my body and eventually found a spot on his left shoulder and tied him up. I yanked on it, and then twice I clipped him with my right hand right on the button, and I laid out the heavyweight champion of the NHL. I got back to the bench after I served my minor penalty, and this little hotshot on our team, his name was Theron Fleury. He was a great, great goal scorer. He stood about 5'5", great little goal scorer, and I had known him since we were young men. He leans over to me on the bench and he goes, "Stu, do you know a good realtor? Because you're going to be around for a while. You might want to get yourself a house back in Calgary." He's like, well, fast forward to 2 nights later. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, folks, but I think it was Charles Dickens who wrote, "It was both the best of times and it was of time." Because you didn't get the best of Dave Brown. And he was going to show me up in mine. My hand was pretty badly banged up. I'd been in a couple of scrapes even before I fought Brownie. And when he came at me 2 nights later back in our building, I couldn't get that glove off. I couldn't find his left hand, and he thumped me pretty good. I went down on all fours. He didn't knock me out, but I was in a bad way. I went to wipe away what I thought for sure was blood under my right eye because he had clipped me there bad. And to my dismay, there was no blood, but there was a very large impression that hadn't been there before underneath my right eye. I said, that's not good. I picked myself up. I skated to the penalty box to serve my major penalty, and I'm sitting there really need to set this straight. The longer I sat there, my head got heavier and heavier and heavier. Deep, dull, throbbing pain to the point where by the end of my major penalty, I skated across the ice. I went to our medical trainer, Bearcat Murray. I said, "Bearcat, you got to get me to the doc. Something sinister is going on here." broken cheekbone under the right eye, fractured my orbital in 3 places above my eye. The surgery to repair that, for the faint of heart, you might want to turn off your audio. To repair that, they actually make an incision behind your ear. They go in with a stainless steel instrument. They tap out the fracture flush from inside your skull to set the fracture straight, and then they insert a stainless steel pin through that fracture and into the 3 bones of your nose to kind of anchor that. And I wore that with about ½ an inch of the stainless steel pin sticking out of it for the next 5 weeks while that fracture repaired. As I did that, I had lots of time to contemplate the following proposition. Is this game really for me? Am I going to pack it all in, and am I going to go home? And do I retire at this point? Or am I going to yank myself up by my bootstraps, get back into the mix, and do my level best to forge a career in this game? I came to the following conclusion, and I had thoughts like the following. If that's the worst that I can face over the course of my career, and I can come back from this, I really have nothing left to fear. And I'll tell you what, at the same time, and I didn't really learn this till many, many years later, the trouble I had with the role that I was playing was not so much the fear of being hurt. It was the fear of humiliation, the fear of seeing my teammates or this crowd. It was the fear of being humiliated, the fear of losing in front of them. I didn't want to be the one who came out on the short end, setting aside the physical danger. That was the element that I really needed to overcome. And I was, as crazy as it sounds, that is really the lesson that I was able to take. And I've been able to impart to others through the telling of this book. The story, as you know it, ultimately is from there. I went on to forge a 14-year NHL career. But this moment in time helped me realize that there is nothing more exciting, nothing more exhilarating than confronting your fears, moving past them to realize that your dreams lay on the other side. The life or the career or whatever it is, the life you choose, the life you aspire to really lays on the other side of those fears. So that was really a liberating moment, personally, professionally, for me all those years ago. And this is the part, that kind of plays into the book that I have been so blessed by since then. This is a story that happened in the context of hockey, but let's be honest. This story has application to everyone on this call, to everyone that ever picks up my book or another book, because it has application in both our personal and professional lives, no matter what it is that we do. And I've been so encouraged having people in other walks of life speak that story or speak that lesson back to me and thank me that, I was able to tell it and that it resonated with them. So all that to say, those are some of, that's maybe a sense of the content in the book and the justification or my reasons for writing the book. And that's the way I really think that I have been affirmed for having written it, a guy that took a lot of encouraging to ultimately do it. It's made a difference for other folks, and I'm grateful for that. So I know I've probably gone a lot longer than I had was allotted. Jennifer will probably wrap me on the knuckles for that. Keely, I'm not sure if you're moderating this piece of it, but if folks had questions or comments or, anything I've said kind of evokes a response from anybody, happy to, spend the rest of the time talking about what this group wants to talk about.
Yeah, we do have one question that came up just now. Does the NHL have issues with CTE, traumatic brain injuries, like the NFL or some other sports?
Yeah, great question. In a layman's sense, and I do follow it quite carefully. The treating neuropsychologist that I worked with as I wrapped up my career and the year and a half after, as I dealt with post-concussion syndrome. If I didn't mention it, that was the reason I retired from the game. He and I stay in pretty close contact, so I stay fairly current with the updated research in this area. We, as a sport, do not deal with CTE and dementia and those things, I don't think, in as prevalent a way as the NFL does, but that's not to say that some of our athletes haven't suffered from CTE. And I think the best way to maybe anecdotally or maybe illustrate that, we all know both sports. Everything football players do, especially linemen, everything they do results in contact of some kind. Hockey hits take place once every several minutes, and there's just two people generally involved in that. But everything football players do results in contact, really, on every play. That's a lot of contact over the course of a player's career. Good question.
Talk just real briefly, we are running out of time, but talk just real briefly about kind of the playing in the bubble and what the NHL is doing to keep everybody safe during this pandemic.
Great question. If you're interested at all, and I really was, if you jump on the NHL.com website, they've actually done a really nice short video blurb. I think it's probably it's not 5 minutes, might be 3 and change, just on how the bubble works. And they've got, I think one of the NHL's VPs kind of walking you through the Edmonton bubble. And for folks on this call that don't know it, essentially to finish out the rest of the season, the 12 top teams in the Western Conference are playing inside one facility, a bubble in Edmonton, Alberta. And the 12 top teams from the Eastern Conference are playing in a similar bubble in Toronto, Ontario. So both back in Canada. But essentially what they've done, Keely, is created, it is almost in fact a hard bubble. Players go back and forth between their specific hotel and the playing rink, or perhaps the practice rink, depending on the day. And they are isolated, completely isolated from outside personnel, from other members of the population in Edmonton or Toronto. They're in this very, very confined and controlled space of NHL players and NHL personnel, including referees and management and people like that. But essentially this one population just circulates inside this hotel across the street to the rink, kind of a bubble, and they monitor it very closely. Again, nobody from outside this very controlled population penetrates this population. They do testing daily, and I haven't heard the update on this in about 4 or 5 days, but in the first 4 or 5 days, they conducted 7,000 tests, not a single positive. Remarkable.
Yeah. I think you could argue that the safest place to be right now in the world is on an NHL team.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I'm sure baseball, if it had considered this at all at any point in their past, is shaking their heads collectively, because what they've tried to do is really simulate the way they would go about their business pre-pandemic. Baseball's going from town to town to town, essentially playing, almost a typical baseball schedule. They try to isolate their players, but they're interacting with the communities that they visit. And, we all know the numbers. Baseball's had a lot of positive tests.
All right, real quick, we have one more question. One word answer. Do the Preds win or lose today?
They win. They win. I'd love to see these guys win, and I'd sure like to see a series deciding 5th game. That'd be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stu, for speaking with us today. I'm going to remind everybody, you've got a link in your chat box. Lena says he just ordered it, and it's easy. If you'd like an autographed copy, go ahead and hit that link. request that today, and we'll get that book taken care of for you. Again, I'll tell you what. Number one, I don't think I've ever, it's a terrible, terrible injury story when in retelling it, Tom Carr grimaces the way that he did just earlier. That was amazing just to see his face. And also, just once in my life, I would like to be treated by a doctor named Bearcat. That's amazing. Thank you again. We'd love to have you back sometime soon, Stu, and we look forward to hearing more from you and seeing you in the future. Please remember, Rotarians, to get your golf sponsors in, especially those that sponsored last year's tournament, but also new ones, of course. Please also remember to keep the Fiddlers, the Stokes, the Wheelwrights in your thoughts and prayers. And if there are no other announcements for the good of Rotary, we are adjourned.
Bye, you. Thanks, everybody. Had a great time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Stu.
Thanks, Keely. Thank you, Ray.
Hasta luego, todos.
Good to see your smiling face,